Yo, what is up guys? Stelboy here, aka Blue Collar Sports TV. Hopefully you guys are doing well. If you're new here, smash that like, hit subscribe, all of that good stuff. So last night on the undercard of Keyshawn Davis versus Denis Berinchyk, heavyweight prospect Jared Anderson made his ring return following his first career defeat back in last summer when he was taken apart by Martin Bakole. Going into that fight, of course, I was saying that I felt Bakole would beat Anderson. I was surprised it got made at the time. And, you know, the fight turned into what it was, which was a one-sided beating. Bakole really... he really just beat the shit out of Anderson. Let's not beat around the bush. And going into that fight, when I saw Anderson's very early fights, I felt there was a fighter with talent, athletically gifted, quick, etc., but the more and more I saw of him, I started to see the defensive flaws. I started to see the lack of boxing fundamentals. What he was doing early on, he was really getting by on speed and athleticism. But as he slowly started to step up the competition, you saw the holes in his game technically. You're looking at fights with the likes of Charles Martin, and there was another guy as well where he really struggled. And yeah, going into the Bakole fight, I felt Bakole would expose him. And since then, I've got to be honest, I have wrote off Jared Anderson. He doesn't strike me as the type of guy who can really grit it out, who can really take the positives from that loss against Martin Bakole and use it as fuel to get better. He doesn't strike me as that sort of guy. In fact, he strikes me as the opposite. Kind of strikes me as the type of guy who will sit there and feel sorry for himself after a setback. And quite frankly, I'm not convinced this guy has the dog in him or the attitude to get better, to improve upon his mistakes. And this rebound fight, he fought a guy called Marios Kolias, a Greek heavyweight who went in with a record of 12 wins and 3 defeats. Durable guy, but really not much about him at all. And in this fight with Kolias, Anderson came in at a career-high heaviest in the 250s. Out of shape. What's he been doing since his loss to Bakole? Eating himself due to depression or what? What's this guy been doing? That loss to Bakole certainly hasn't lit a fire under his ass. He looked sloppy in there. He looked out of shape. And against a guy in Kolias who is like a journeyman, Anderson looked poor. He won this fight, don't get me wrong, and he was always more or less in control, but Kolias had his moments. In round 2, he caught Anderson with some good check left hook counters. He was tagging him throughout with decent shots. Anderson was more active, was quicker, was more active with the jab, etc., and he was winning most of the rounds, but Kolias was always in this fight, and that is worrying because anybody who's anybody is going to beat Kolias comfortably, let's be honest. They're going to get rid of him. I know he's relatively durable, but anybody who's anybody is going to get rid of that dude. And Anderson was a little too competitive for my liking with this guy. Round 10 as well, Anderson had a bad moment as well, where he was caught. Seemed very frustrated in the last round. His behaviour in the corner was bizarre, like he didn't want to be there. I think he said in his corner he didn't want to go 10 rounds and things like that. Just going through the motions, really. He looked like a guy who was there to pick up a check. And that's what his performance looked like. He won the fight, but you look at that performance, for me there's no real positives to take from it, apart from him getting the W, Aside from him getting the win, what positives can you draw from this? It's not really a confidence builder because he looked terrible. In fact, his confidence is probably going to take a hit after this, quite frankly. It wasn't really a learning fight because Kolias didn't really bring anything to the table apart from being, relatively durable, and he did come to win for the most part. This was a bad performance by Jared Anderson. Very disappointed in the shape that he turned up in. That's a big red flag, and there's been so many red flags surrounding Anderson recently, even prior to the Bakole fight. And, I try not to be one of those people who writes a fighter off too early, because Anderson is only 25, but from what I see from this guy, how I hear him talk, I don't like what I hear, I don't like what I see. I don't think this guy's heart is in boxing. I think he's in it to get paid. I don't think he's in it for glory or anything of the sort. And quite frankly, you look at Anderson right now, if I was Top Rank, I would pull the plug on Anderson. Richard Torres is fighting Guido Vianello in April, which is a good step up for Torres. Should Torres beat Vianello, I would just feed Anderson to Torres and be done with it. Take whatever shine is still on Anderson's name and give it to Torres. Now, I'm not like super sold on Torres either, but he will beat Anderson. The aggression, the power, the speed, he will walk through Anderson, in my opinion. In the long run, again, I'm not convinced how good Torres is, but he's a guy who clearly has his heart set in boxing. His mind is on boxing, whereas Anderson, I can't say the same. If I was Top Rank, I would fatten this guy up for Richard Torres. If I was somebody around Anderson, though, like close to him, who cared about him, you would have to sit this guy down and read him the riot act. Ultimately, do you want to be in the sport or not? And from there, he needs to make major changes in his career, from a new trainer to a new promotional company. A total fresh start, and actually apply yourself. Try to do a real rebuild. New trainer, like I said, somebody who's going to read him the right act, somebody who's not going to put his arm around him, somebody who's going to tell it like it is to him. Because right now, if this guy continues fighting, heart not in the sport, he's going to get knocked out again. He's going to get hurt again. Any half-decent heavyweight would have beaten Anderson based on last night's performance. Any half-decent heavyweight would have beaten him. Anderson, he needs to work out whether he wants to box or not. And if he wants to box, then there should be a slow rebuild. Because right now, this guy is a million miles away from where he was touted to get to. A million miles away. But yeah, shocking performance. It has to be said, awful performance by Anderson. I was kind of intrigued to see how he would look on his return. And I wasn't expecting him to pull up trees or anything like that, but I'll be honest, he kind of looked worse than I expected. He looked worse. So, yeah, I mean, listen, I am writing him off, personally. I can't really see him rebounding. I don't think he's got the attitude. I don't think he's got the mentality. I don't think he's got the dog, quite frankly. I just don't think he has it. Maybe he can prove me wrong, but all the signs that I'm seeing, I don't think I will be proven wrong. I think that Bakole beatdown has really taken a lot out of him. And even before then, like I said, I wasn't convinced his heart was in boxing anyway. And he realised after that Bakole fight what this game is all about. And does he want that? I don't think he does. But anyway, share your thoughts below. Beanie Guy Delboy. I will try and watch the Keyshawn fight as well, by the way. I haven't seen it yet. But if I get time, I will watch it and do a post-fight review. I'll watch it anyway, but it's whether I have time to do a post-fight. But anyway, share your thoughts below. Beanie Guy Delboy. Peace.